This is the Blood Red Podcast from the Liverpool ECHO.
It's the Blood Red Podcast, courtesy of the Liverpool ECHO. I'm Guy Clarke. Welcome along. Origi sticks it to the Toffees as the Reds continue their Premier League title march. Having sunk the Blues at Anfield, it's now over to the Yellow Submarine. We'll review the derby, preview the Champions League semi-final first leg, pick our team and give our match predictions too. On board to go through all of that, we have our Liverpool correspondent, both home and away, Paul Gorst, Garnett and Charlotte Coates. I trust you're all well. And Gorsty, I'll throw it straight over to you first. Divock Origi, the ultimate Liverpool cult hero?
Yeah, no question. A strange, very strange Liverpool career in that if you're looking back at his highlight reels over the, 7 years he's been at Liverpool, 6 or 7 years, you're looking at the goals.
2014 and then he went out on loan.
He signed in 2014, yeah, then he went on loan. We went straight back to Lille for the season. So if you look at his highlight reels, you're thinking, this guy looks like a complete modern forward. Looks like he's got a bit of everything, a bit of pace, a bit of power. He can finish, he can header, he can hold it up. And then the reality is, he'll have 89 minutes of a complete meandering performance and then pop up and score you the winning goal. Just such a strange kind of contrast in his career. And I actually think, if Liverpool weren't playing Everton yesterday, Klopp might not have sent him on. He might have looked elsewhere across his bench because he doesn't really get much of a look in these days. He's sixth choice striker, might even be seventh, if Minamino's doing the business in the cup games. He's either sixth or seventh, so it's not a ringing endorsement. But given Liverpool's quality in that area, it's a difficult place to be in for him, isn't it? He's never struck me as someone who rocks the boat and someone who's going to be banging on the manager's door that he's not playing every week. But when he gets his chance, particularly from the bench, he doesn't need a whole lot. He might just need one chance, and he's got his name in the headlines. And it's funny because a mate of mine messaged me the other day, and he said to me, I just feel like Origi's still got one big moment left in him before he leaves. And I said, you know what? I was thinking the same myself, and I don't actually even think this is it. I just got a feeling, whether it's at Wembley or maybe Villarreal, the second leg, or maybe even in the Champions League final, or even in this title race, I just think there's one big moment left in Divock Origi before the end of the season, and Everton are going to be glad to see the back of Mamanta because he scored 6 against them, and for someone who's never been a prolific goal scorer for Liverpool, he just absolutely loves the Merseyside derby, and he'll leave, as you say, as one of the biggest cult heroes ever when he finally does move on, which is probably going to be in the summer.
Yeah, as you say, 6 Merseyside derby goals in 6 Anfield derbies. Rich, I mean, he's the definition of a cult hero, isn't it? He's not there week in, week out, being the man leading the line, doing it. But as Gorsty said, it's the narrative that's been going around for a couple of weeks. Well, Divock Origi's up the sleeve, kind of still there in the pack to be chosen when needed. And I'm completely with Gorsty. I felt there's that moment left, and I'm not even sure Sunday was it.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know if we do him a slight disservice by calling him a cult hero, really. Sometimes when you think of cult heroes, you think of people like Igor Biscan and Jimmy Traore, those sort of characters who perhaps weren't the greatest but contributed in different ways. I think maybe Origi's a little bit more than that. You look at the goals that he scored, the key goals. It's like a big game player. He's a sort of like Dirk Kuyt as a player who just had a knack of scoring on the very biggest occasion, all those most important goals. And he's just continued to deliver time and time again when called upon. But I actually interviewed him after a Europa League game years ago. I can't remember which one it was, and I was under Brendan Rodgers. But he came across as someone who had a fantastic attitude. You know what I mean? Had a lot of time to speak to people. Seemed quite a humble individual. Someone who was, just was happy to be a professional footballer at a great club, and probably caused no problems for managers whatsoever. I'm sure, he obviously would want to start more games than he has done in his Liverpool career, but his attitude has always been absolutely spot on. Bit of a manager's dream, really. And I remember it was Lille he went back on loan to, wasn't it? And there was talk of him. I'm sure at the end of that loan spell, there was talk of him moving away at that point. But I remember him being quoted as saying, I think the best decision for my career is to work under Jurgen Klopp, and that's exactly what he's done. And he's never actually broken into that top three with any sort of regularity. Bit of a tall order to get into such an incredible strike force, but it hasn't necessarily been a bad thing for him. You look at the success he's had. Look at the honours he's got on his CV. Unbelievable. And the real question about Origi is what material are you going to use to make his statue out of? Because surely to God, somewhere down the line, he is going to be remembered for what he's done for this club. And I absolutely agree. We have not seen the last of him this season. There is one big moment left in his Anfield career.
Yeah, most definitely. Charlotte, what do you think of the psychology from Jurgen Klopp of bringing on Divock Origi in the Merseyside derby? I mean, it was mentioned on commentary by Jamie Carragher. Gorst, he said it there. If it wasn't Everton, would Origi even have come onto the pitch? But such is the occasion. It's just the kind that he exactly rises to.
Just shows the trust that Klopp puts in his players, because, like it was said previously, he's not had a look in for weeks. He's barely even been seen. So the fact that Liverpool were in control of the game, but it was 0-0. Everton were looking dangerous on the break at times, and could have been one of those games where it just derails the title race completely. And then all of a sudden you see, obviously Luis Diaz were always going to come on, and then you see Origi coming on as well, and it just shows how much Klopp trusts him after not playing him for so long, purely because he knows he's the man for the big occasion, but also he loves scoring against Everton.
Yeah, most definitely. And Klopp said in the press conference afterwards, and he called him a legend and says he's the best finisher at the club as well. Gorsty, you referenced it before, though. Is that perhaps the parting gift to the Kop? He may well strike again, but it does look as though his time at Anfield could well be coming to a close this summer.
Yeah, well, it's looking like he's going to move on this summer, doesn't it? I think Liverpool had an option to extend the contract, but I think that possibly might have been appearance-based, going back a few months, trying to remember speaking to a couple of people. But yeah, I just think with Liverpool now, they've got 5 that go into 3, haven't they, and chop and change it accordingly. So, if you're seeing Origi, something somewhere isn't quite working, something's not gone quite according to plan, and Liverpool are kind of rolling the dice, throwing him into the mix. Either that or it's a kind of low-key game, but there aren't going to be any of them between now and the end of the season for Liverpool, are they? So if we do see him again, it will be because Liverpool are taking a little bit of a risk, but that is kind of what sums him up, isn't it? When Liverpool desperately needs someone, he seems to be the man who can come up with the goods. I wrote yesterday about the goal he scored against Everton in 2018, the close range header against Jordan Pickford at the Kop end late on to seal a Liverpool win. And this was the same story, wasn't it? Kind of bookended his career, because that goal kind of reignited his career, because I think Liverpool had played in the Champions League earlier that week. Can't remember who it was against. Now, Red Star Belgrade away in the Champions League. And I remember Origi coming on. I remember thinking, is this how desperate Liverpool have got? They're reaching for Origi, because I don't think he'd played all season up until that point. Later that week, he scores against Everton, and his career is reignited. He goes and does what he does against Barcelona. He goes and scores in Madrid. Obviously, the header against Newcastle as well to keep Liverpool on the coattails of City in the final weeks of the campaign. So he's just made a real habit of scoring hugely important goals. And then everything else, it's just fairly ordinary. You can never really point out a game where you think, oh, he was absolutely unplayable that day, but didn't quite get his goal, or he's laid on an assist for someone else. It's either huge moments of something that fans will remember forever, or you're not getting a whole lot else. And it's just such a kind of strange contrast of a career, but that in a way sums up the enigmatic Divock Origi, I guess.
Yeah, even you look at his record this season, 101 Premier League minutes across 6 appearances, 3 goals in there as well. Rich, the goal against Everton, he scored in the defeat at West Ham, and also, of course, a key goal at Molineux earlier on in the campaign. I'm just thinking next season with the 5 substitutes rule coming in the Premier League, does that not change the thinking? I know Gorsty said there is contracts actually up, or however it is, but would there not be an argument keeping him about?
If Divock Origi stayed at Liverpool, I certainly wouldn't be disappointed. But I think you've got to be fair to the player himself. He's been very loyal to Liverpool. Obviously, he's paid very well, good contract, great club to be at. But he will have had, looking at his goals per minute record and whatnot, he will have had plenty of suitors from other clubs. Obviously, he's been very strongly linked with AC Milan from the end of the season. But it won't be just them that'll be interested in signing Divock Origi. And I think he feels like he's been there forever, doesn't he? But he's actually only just turned 27. Which is, more or less around about the peak for a centre forward, isn't it? So this is probably a moment where he's at crossroads in his career. He's won everything you can win with Liverpool. He could finish this season still incredibly, could finish it with 4 different major honours. Absolutely unbelievable. And what you do after that is he probably knows in his heart of heart he's never going to be a regular starter. So it's more about Divock Origi than Liverpool, I think, this. And he probably deserves to go to a club where he can be the main focal point and with plenty in the bank from what he's achieved at Anfield and in his Liverpool career, go on to something new and make a different impact. I think maybe it'd be a bit selfish to keep him.
Okay, final point then, solely on Divock Origi, Charlotte. I suppose if he's to move on and go, as Rich said there, AC Milan, the club heavily linked with securing his signature. I suppose the key thing is he doesn't stick around in the Premier League, because the one thing Liverpool wouldn't want is him coming back to haunt them.
Yeah, it seems like with the goals he scores and stuff, it's such strange moments, really. You feel like if he did play against Liverpool, he'd end up scoring. But yeah, it's actually quite, we don't know for sure if anyone from the Premier League is in for him or not, but obviously AC Milan are a great club. Change of scenery, you're living in Italy and they're a great historic club. But you'd have to think that like some Premier League clubs would be in for him, because he's not been a regular at Liverpool and his goal scoring numbers aren't great, but there's a player there. You can see that with his physicality, his finishing, and what he's done for Liverpool at times. That I don't know. It'd be quite strange if he didn't have any offers from to stay in the Premier League. But yeah, him at AC Milan, you feel like as a Liverpool fan, you want him to go and do well because of what he's done. It's one of them where it's like you understand why he's leaving, and like Rich said, it's better for his career. And at AC Milan, he'll be at a great club, hopefully playing Champions League football, and just playing as much as he deserves, really.
Yeah, definitely. Gorst, do you want to get into some of the Everton antics and the rest of kind of the gameplay from the derby as well? But the crucial moment was when Origi and Luis Diaz came onto the pitch. Of course, they linked for that second goal. Origi even involved in the build-up for the first one, teeing off Salah, who crossed for Andy Robertson. But Luis Diaz, just that double change as well, and him coming onto the pitch, that touch he took, the assist he got as well. You run out of kind of superlatives for the impact that he has on the game. And it kind of leaves me to wonder, is he the signing of the season in the Premier League? He only came in January, but division-wide, I can't think of another player who's had the impact he's had.
No, he has. And what he's kind of benefited from as well is he joined Liverpool at a time when there was a couple of weeks break in between fixtures, the winter break, and Liverpool were able to get Thiago fit and Keita back from the Africa Cup of Nations. Harvey Elliott was fit. And then all of a sudden, Liverpool played the next game. I think it might have been Cardiff in the Cup. And you're looking at the squad and you think of, what a squad Liverpool have got almost out of nowhere, because for so long, the kind of mainstream narrative was that if Liverpool got 1 or 2 injuries, then they'd struggle to cope with City. And they only signed one player, and then all of a sudden it was, wow, look at this squad. It's surely the strongest Liverpool have ever had in the Premier League era. So I think he's benefited from that. But there's no doubt that he's probably been a little bit of a surprise package, actually, because I think, people knew that Liverpool were signing a good player. There was perhaps an idea that he might be a little bit of a backup for Sadio Mane, between now and the rest of the season. He'll need a full pre-season to come in, and then he can start to challenge the other 3 or 4 for the place. But he's he's starting Carabao Cup finals, he's starting FA Cup semi-finals. I wouldn't be surprised if he's playing in a Champions League semi-final on Wednesday night. He's just absolutely hit the ground running. And I've noticed Jurgen Klopp speak a few times saying that a few more things that we want from him on the defensive side of things, but that can wait. We'll get that message across during the full pre-season. We're not just giving him reams and reams of instructions. It's just a case of go out there and do your stuff. And what a player he has been. Was it 3 goals, I think, possibly 4? That doesn't really do justice to the impact that he's had. He's just given everyone a massive lift at a time when Liverpool needed it, really. They had a bit of a stumble in late December, and the draw with Chelsea in early January left many people thinking that the title race was done. So he's come in, and by the end of February, he was a Carabao Cup winner, and Liverpool are now competing on all fronts. And it's just a special time to be a fan, a special time to be a journalist covering it, a special time to be talking about it, writing about it. And Diaz can take, a big portion of that credit because, as I say, he just give everyone a little lift, didn't he? So, it's a good debate whether it is the sign of the season or not. But I just think he's just had a massive impact in such a short space of time as well.
Yeah, Rich, what's your take on it? I mean, 3 goals in 9 Premier League games. He's got a couple of assists as well. I mean, the numbers aren't really kind of leap off the page. Oh, look at exactly how brilliant this guy is. And we love the phrases of generational, transformative when we're kind of talking about signings in this day and age. But he has been transformative, hasn't he? Not maybe individually in what he's done for Liverpool, but the way in which he just seems to have unlocked so much confidence, extra confidence and exuberance within his teammates as well.
Well, are you not entertained? I mean, what a player this guy is. It's unbelievable. You have to remember he's come to England from Portugal. I'm not too sure how good his English is. He's coming to a new culture. He's coming to a team that plays in a very specific way, which is specifically drilled by Jurgen Klopp, and often sees players, big signings, not play straight away whilst they're embedded into that sort of Klopp philosophy of how he likes his players to perform. It seems to be a rule breaker with Luis Diaz. He seems to be playing without restrictions. He's playing with a freedom and a confidence that I don't think barring maybe Luis Suarez, I don't think I've ever seen a player come in just fresh like that and play with such a level of confidence. I mean, that control he did on the Camelon Road touchline, in the middle of a Merseyside derby, a high stakes match, was absolutely out of this world. I mean, I could watch that all day, but it's not just that. He's such an eccentric player, such an exciting player, and there's no one at the moment. If you look at Liverpool got so many good players, but if there was one player out of all before a match, you're thinking, I can't wait to see how he plays. It's Luis Diaz. He's brought that level of excitement, of energy, of entertainment. It's the whole reason you watch football, isn't it? Is to be entertained, to break from from the trappings of life, and he brings the lot. He's the full package, and I do think he's going to add a lot more goals to his game. I'm certain. He might not have got loads of goals so far, but when you're competing with the likes of Salah and Mane and Jota, it's difficult to share them all around so quickly. But there's definitely more goals to come from Diaz. I'm expecting to get a boatload next season. But his arrival, and it was almost by accident, wasn't it, in a way? Because obviously they've been tracking Diaz for a while, but he's only at the club now because of Tottenham's movements in the January transfer window. It didn't appear to be an imminent signing, one for the end of the season. But the fact that he has come in has given Liverpool this extra dimension and allowed them to continue to attack a quadruple. So you never know. It might be the happy accident that wins Liverpool honours this season. But yeah, he's the most exciting player on the pitch at the moment for me. And, I can't wait to see him play again.
Yeah, no, definitely. Charlotte, what's your take? And I mean, that touch as well, even at the end of that move, he wasn't far away from scoring either. Jordan Pickford did well to keep him out. But do you have him up there as the signing of the season?
Yeah, I think the impact he's had at Liverpool, where Liverpool, the team, it's full of great attackers. Like you've got your Salahs, Mane's. Like Salah was best player in the world at one point in the season. So you're coming into that team already and you're standing out. You've got to be pretty special. But he's one of those players where I don't know, if he's not in the starting 11, then you're kind of disappointed because you think, oh, I want to watch him. I want to watch him play because he's exciting and he's fearless when he's on the ball. He attacks people. Like he's not the most skillful in the sense where he's doing loads of step overs and stuff like that. But he attacks players and he beats a man. And like Rich said, it's what you want to see in football. You want to be entertained. And he entertains as much as anyone in that Liverpool side. And I feel like maybe it's where Mane, the last season or two, it's where he's dropped off a little bit with, like when he first came to Liverpool and for like 3 years or so, he was absolutely electric, beating his man and attacking his man. Whereas now it's like his game's evolved a bit into going a bit more central and like he's so strong on the ball and he creates space for players, whereas Diaz has like kind of taken up the role that Mane had in the side from a couple of years ago, where you'd give him the ball and you just know that whoever's playing right back that day for the opposition, they're going to be in for a torrid time.
Yeah, definitely. It's a generational before as well. And I think, 26 years ago, a Colombian winger came in midway through the title race to Newcastle United, Tino Asprilla. He was all about party off the pitch. Luis Diaz party on the pitch, and certainly looks as though he could perhaps have the reverse impact and be the man to take Liverpool to the title. We'll have to wait and see. But Gorsty, let's talk about the derby then itself. A huge incident in terms of a penalty appeal for Everton. Anthony Gordon, Joel Matip running across. What was your take on that one? And of course, a bit of talk as well that Sadio Mane perhaps gave the referee an option whether or not to send him off. Of course, it was just a yellow card, but those two are the big talking points out of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think Everton have made them talking points, haven't they, by writing to the PGMOL today, bemoaning why the penalty wasn't given. I try my best to avoid talking about referees and decisions because I just think far too much of the football and landscape is just dominated by what the man in the middle does with his whistle. I think too much time, it's not enough of the focus on the players, the tactics, the managers and the nuances of the game. And I don't think these decisions are kind of major enough to reflect on too much, if I'm honest. I think the first one was a dive. The second one can go either way. Everton had a penalty in 2017, I think it was, for less than the one that Gordon went down for under Matip's challenge. But so what? These things happen, don't they? Liverpool could quite easily go up the other end and say that Divock Origi could have had one on when Michael Keane blocked them off. I didn't think that was either. So these things happen, and I think writing to the referees about it is a bit, I don't know, it's a bit futile, is it? Maybe I can see why Everton did it when Rodri was accused of the handball that never got given, because that's a little bit of a different one. That's not a foul. Rodri didn't have anyone within 10 yards of him. It's his hand and it's moved on. I can see why Liverpool did it last season when Jordan Pickford's tackle ended the Virgil van Dijk season and no one batted an eyelid. I can see why at times clubs want clarification over certain incidents, but when it's a decision like this, it's going to be a pretty short answer, isn't it? The referee didn't think it was a penalty. Let's all move on. But when you've got 17% possession, you can't have any complaints if you don't win the game. Obviously, there's a way to go about it. There's more than one way to skin a cat, and I've got no problem with the way Everton set up yesterday. But when you don't win the game and you've only had 17% possession, you can't really start bemoaning the fact that you didn't win the game.
Yeah, definitely. Completely in agreement with you. And I don't want to spend too much time talking about the referee either and his officiating. But Rich, does that then underline the brilliance of Jurgen Klopp, the management in game that he showed to effectively take the referee out of it? Because first half, it was a very scrappy game. At one point, did look as though it may well have boiled over. But on the hour mark, he makes the change. And all of a sudden, didn't matter what the man in the middle was doing, Liverpool were going to win that game.
Yeah, it's no foregone conclusion that Liverpool will win every game that they play in, regardless of the opposition. I looked at the Man United match last week and I thought to myself, before the game, Liverpool will win this match easily. I had no doubt about that, and that's how it turned out in the end. But Everton was always going to be a different story. You know, they needed to come up with something. They're always going to, from what I've seen, they're always going to be far more better applied than United were, and that proved to be the case. And first off, I think you do need to give credit to Frank Lampard for the tactics that he did employ, because whether you hated them, the bottom line was he managed to disrupt Liverpool and maybe some of the strange refereeing decisions or lack of them was a contributing factor to that. But his tactics stopped Liverpool from playing. It stopped them from creating chances. It stopped them from having any sort of flow. But the second half was a different story, and it was just a case of, I think, getting the players in and Klopp speaking to them and coming up with a plan B, because you can't, you know, he always plays the same formation to a degree until we ended up with four forwards on the pitch. But there's more than one way to win a football match, and the energy that came in that second half was absent in the first half. It was almost like, by keeping the ball, obviously very high possession rates, by keeping the ball, we'll wear Everton down, we'll get our chance, and you know, we'll go in half time with the lead. That never happens. That Liverpool, for me, weren't moving the ball quick enough. They weren't being decisive enough. They weren't being aggressive enough. All that was there in the second half. And if you take those, you know, those penalty incidents and whatnot out of the equation, in isolation, they clearly did enough in the second half to win the game. So another job well done for Jurgen Klopp. He's answered the question that's been asked of him by the opponents, and it's another 3 points.
Yeah, definitely. I suppose it'll be another Merseyside derby remembered for Divock Origi, Charlotte, but we spent 15 minutes talking about him at the start of this podcast. But the key player in the game was Andy Robertson. Not only got his goal, his first in front of the Kop, but also that, I suppose, goal line clearance. I mean, it wasn't going in, but Dele Alli was waiting to tap it in, and he showed the determination and hunger to get across him to clear it. I mean, it's not been the easiest of seasons at times for Andy Robertson, and Kostas Tsimikas has really given him competition, but he like the team, is coming to the fore when most needed.
Yeah, he's probably the one player that you'd look at, and where Jurgen Klopp would probably be like, yeah, he's exactly what I want from this side. The effort he puts in and his determination, obviously his level of skill, he's a fantastic player. But yeah, he had I don't know, it was like questions were asked about him this, like, at the start of the season, and people were calling for Tsimikas to start because, like, credit to Tsimikas, he's a good player, he's a great backup. But it was kind of like Robertson was being a bit underappreciated, I feel, earlier on this season, because what he's done since joining Liverpool, he's been fantastic. Like, the numbers he's posted with assists, and defensively, he's fantastic. Where I know he's got Van Dijk next to him and stuff like that, but he very, very rarely gets beaten, and positionally, he always seems to be there. If, like yesterday, clearance needed to be made, he was there. And he was the unlikely goal hero, where a goal looked like it would come in for Liverpool in the second half, but you would just think, like, no clear-cut chances were being made. There weren't really a chance where you can say, oh, he should have scored then, because Everton were defending well. And when your likes of Salah got on the ball, it was like, well, he's up against his fullback and then two others, so it was tough. But then all of a sudden, good balling, good bit of play, good balling by Salah, and there's Robertson, and he deserved it, really. It was great to see, and in his celebration, you could see how much it meant to him, and obviously how much it meant to Liverpool, because it kept the title race alive.
Yeah, most definitely. Let's move on from the title race then and on to Wednesday night and against Villarreal. And Gorst, I suppose, given kind of the way in which they dealt with Bayern Munich in the previous round, Villarreal was Sunday kind of the ideal opponent in Everton, not in terms of the derby, but in terms of the way they set up and really looked to contain and counter. That was definitely the MO for Villarreal in the last round, and Liverpool have now come up immediately against an opponent who have tried to sit in deep and shown how they deal with them. Yeah,
it's very similar. Obviously, Villarreal are much better in possession and keeping the ball and moving it and counter-attacking generally. They're in the Champions League semi-final of the Europa League holders. They've obviously beaten Bayern Munich and Juventus en route as well. But I don't think there's any getting away from it. I think Liverpool, inside the club, Jurgen Klopp, the players, the coaching staff, I think they will give Villarreal every single bit of due respect that they deserve. But outside of the club, I think everyone has to be realistic and accept that this is an absolute dream of a draw for Liverpool. The one team standing between them and the Champions League final is Villarreal, who last time I looked at about 7th in La Liga. So it's a team who seems to have a very clear identity from what the little I've seen of them under Unai Emery, who is weirdly looked at as a bit of a comical figure in English football just because he didn't quite pull up massive trees at Arsenal. But he's one of the best managers in European football, if you understand what I mean, in terms of European competitions. He's won the Europa League quite a few times with Sevilla, hasn't he? And he obviously won it again with Villarreal last season. And he's got the Yellow Submarines to a semi-final. So Liverpool can't underestimate them. But as I say, it's an ideal draw for the Reds. And I fully expect them to go past them and make it to the Champions League final. But it won't be a foregone conclusion. And Jurgen Klopp, I'm sure he'll be telling us all in his press conference tomorrow that is the case.
Yeah, they've not played Rich since the 19th of April. So obviously the middle of last week, they've had kind of a week and a bit off, or 8 days before this game to build up for it. I don't know if that's La Liga having moved their fixtures to help them out. We know Jurgen Klopp's view on that with the Premier League, and we'll talk about Newcastle, I'm sure, later in the week, and the lack of flexibility that has been shown there. But in terms of Unai Emery and what he's done in European football, as Gorst said there, I think Klopp called him the king of the knockout cups, didn't he? And I suppose he is one of those. He's a modern legend, as it were, in terms of knockout competitions in Europe. And Liverpool have kind of seen that firsthand in the past when he was at Sevilla.
Yeah, they have. And, you look back at Liverpool losing to Sevilla, that's kind of the start. Sometimes I always say you have to lose to win. And that was kind of the start of Klopp's really legacy sort of kicking on and taking Liverpool onto greater things. And you get a bloody nose in the process, learn from it and know what to do right the next time. And you'll be all too aware of what Villarreal's superb manager is capable of doing, and he'll have a team set up, he'll have a plan, he'll come to Anfield, maybe he'll try and disrupt like Everton did, maybe in a different way. They'll try and keep the ball more, as Gorsty said, and it's not going to be an easy game for Liverpool, but it is the easiest opponent out of the teams left in the competition on paper. That's a fact. But having said that, any team that beats Bayern Munich over 2 legs with players like Robert Lewandowski on the pitch are deserving of respect. I think it's not normal. You always want, ideally, from a supporter's perspective, you always really want the second leg at Anfield, don't you? And you can take the game, the atmosphere will be sensational, and if things go right, you've got a great celebration at the end of it. But I don't know, in this sort of scenario, with all the other things going on in other competitions as well, I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing that Liverpool play first this time round, especially if they can put on a really good performance on Wednesday night. And if they are able to do what they did to Roma a couple of years ago and blitz them out of the park, then, Jurgen's going to be able to be a bit more pragmatic about how he sets up over in Spain for the second leg. I don't want to say he's going to start resting players and stuff like that, but they need to deliver the goods first on Wednesday night. But if they do have that opportunity to do it, if it arises and they are able to build up something of a substantial lead, then looking at the Premier League and looking at the FA Cup, it will be advantage Liverpool, looking at the wider picture.
Yeah, let's, I suppose, cut to the chase with it, Charlotte, and be real about it. That is certainly a realistic prospect, isn't it, for Liverpool? Try and drum up a 2 or 3 goal lead. And I wouldn't say take their foot off the pedal. They saw only 3 seasons ago what a side in the Champions League semi-final will do if they kind of take it for granted that they're already through. But this is a real significant opportunity to try and do what they did in even the last round against Benfica and wrap the tie up effectively in the first game, and then be ready to switch all concentration over to the Premier League for a little while.
Oh yeah, well, with the size of Liverpool squad these days, it's hard to actually, like, changes can be made, and like even you get 5 changes made and you still think, like, what team that is. And then obviously you've got a bench that is ridiculous. So if it's needed, then you've got that firepower. But it's kind of like, I don't know, I think it's quite good that Liverpool have got the first leg at Anfield purely for that reason, because it is, like, obviously it's a semi-final of the Champions League and Villarreal are going to be no pushovers at all, and it'll be a tough game, but you're kind of hoping if Liverpool can get a goal, then maybe get a couple more, and then you're thinking, obviously, going to Spain with 2-goal lead, you're massively fancying Liverpool. And I don't think that would be a big enough lead for Klopp to make changes as such. But you're thinking if you can get a 3-goal lead or something, then you're thinking the tie's done really. Like something disastrous would have to happen over in Spain for Liverpool not to go through. But yeah, it's the only game really where you can kind of think, well, if Liverpool do get a lead, then can maybe best a few in the second leg, because obviously you've got final of the FA Cup coming up, so strongest team, and then every Premier League game is kind of like a final, because you know if you drop points, even if you draw, it's done really, isn't it? With this close to the end of the season, and with the team who's in front of Liverpool at the moment, it's, you know, that if Liverpool draw a game, then City are just going to go on and win the league. So yeah, it's quite a strange thing to say actually, that the second leg of the semi-final in the Champions League is actually the one game where Klopp could rest some players.
Yeah, it does feel like that could be the case, but let's not get too carried away. But certainly does feel as though there is an opportunity for that to happen. Gorsty, final one before we pick our team for the game. Just in terms of the Champions League, and now it rocks back round and it is the last 4. Does it wake you up once more to kind of the significance of it? And I mean, Liverpool can't pick and choose which tournaments they are going to win, but you go back to 2019 and Man City did a domestic treble, which had never been done in English football before. And yet everyone talks about the Champions League win of Liverpool 2019 and being out in Madrid and what that was for Liverpool and how it catapulted them on the following year, and then winning the Super Cup and becoming club world champions. Chelsea this year, everyone's spoken about them as champions of the world, champions of Europe. It does hold a special significance, doesn't it? As much as there are so many other fronts to be battling.
Yeah, it's the biggest competition in club football, isn't it? There's no doubt about that. Personally, I think if you asked me what I feel most Liverpool fans would rather win this season, I'd say it's the Premier League, purely because supporters never got the chance to celebrate in 2020, did they? But if you're asking any other normal season, or say for example Liverpool did win the Premier League this season, and then you're going again in August, you know, I'm still saying Champions League is the one that you're looking to win the most. Some interesting comments from Mo Salah on that, speaking to ESPN Brazil, possibly last week. He said at the start of the season, he wrote down his aims for the season and he put Champions League number 1 and Premier League number 2. So it just resonates with footballers, with football fans, and you just get a little kind of status, don't you, when you've won the Champions League? It's just, he's a European Cup winner. It just means so much more than a domestic title, wherever that title is won. So yeah, I think Champions League will always be the big one, particularly because Liverpool have got such a great relationship with it over the years. I mean, they've won it more times than any other British club. Obviously going for the 7th title this season. So yeah, there's always a little special kind of allure of the Champions League, and it feels a bit weird that, you know, we're 2 days out from this Champions League semi-final. It doesn't really feel like it at the moment, because I think the identity of the team they're up against, they're probably going to be massively heavy favourites, you'd imagine. And hopefully on Wednesday night, when it comes to it, it will start to feel a little bit more special, a little bit more like these things shouldn't be taken for granted. But at the moment, it just feels a little bit, don't know, subdued at the moment. Maybe that's because we've just come off the heels of a Merseyside derby, I'm not sure, or the fact that Liverpool have just got so much to look forward to and to focus on at the moment. But yeah, the Champions League semi-final at Anfield under the lights, always going to be a massive occasion.
Okay, let's pick our team then for the Champions League semi-final first leg with Villarreal. Alisson in goal. Rich, you can lead us on the back four. What are you thinking?
Okay, we're with Trent at right back. Kanate back in, as he seems to be a bit of a European fixture. I don't see that changing. Virgil van Dijk and goal scorer Andy Robertson. So no real surprises in the back four there. But yeah, Kanate back in for Matip, following the trend of the previous rounds.
Do you go along with that, Charlotte, or are you thinking other changes?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking.
And Gorsty, complete the set, is that right? Yeah.
No, I'm keeping faith with Matip. I think weighing them up individually, there's not much to choose from between Kanate and Matip, unless you're really drilling down into the specifics. But I just think Liverpool tend to be a lot more solid, and I think the lack of goals conceded will reflect that when Matip plays alongside Van Dijk. So and we know Matip can't play every game, but I'm going to be putting him in for this one.
Okay, Charlotte, what about the midfield? What are you thinking for the three in there?
Fabinho with Thiago, and then I'm going to go for John Henderson to come back in because I do really like the midfield of Fabinho, Thiago, Keita, and they showed in the FA Cup semi-final just how good they can be. But didn't really think Keita did much yesterday to warrant staying in the side ahead of Henderson. And Champions League semi-final, you got to start captain, haven't you?
Yeah, is this going to be the area of the pitch, Gorsty, where maybe there's the most consideration given to it, given the tight turnaround? So the Newcastle game?
Yeah, we know Klopp can't stand Wednesday night, Saturday afternoons, or Saturday mornings even, really, isn't it? So, yeah, I think I agree with Charles. I think Henderson will come back in. I was actually surprised that Thiago started yesterday. I had a slight inkling that Curtis Jones might have got a nod, and I thought there might have been a couple more changes than there actually was. So, a little bit surprised by that, but I think he might just keep Thiago in there, even though we know that he's not someone who can play loads and loads of games in quick succession, can he? But I think he's just on such good form that it'd be a risk taking him out. And Fabinho is an automatic alongside Van Dijk and Alisson for me these days. Has been for a while, to be fair.
Yeah, Rich, what are you thinking?
Slightly differently. Fabinho's in. He just has to play every game. And I'm sticking with Thiago. I think he's in particularly good form at the moment and has quickly become a very key player over the last few weeks. I'm keeping faith with Naby Keita. I wasn't overly impressed with him yesterday. I feel like Jordan Henderson has started ever so slightly to start slipping down the pecking order, but I feel he may have a role to play against Newcastle. So I've kind of gone with the reverse, really. And Keita to play tomorrow and Henderson maybe to get a start on Saturday.
Okay, we'll have to wait and see how that plays out. Gorsty, then, front three.
Well, we're assuming that Firmino's still carrying that foot injury and he's not going to be fit enough to start, I think he might recall Diaz actually and bring Jota out. Jota had one of those games where he doesn't really tend to do a whole lot. I thought he worked really hard and he put Everton's defence under a lot of pressure, closing them down and forcing them into just hoofing it long every chance that they could. Didn't give them an opportunity to build up from the back. But other than that, he was kind of a little bit off the boil in terms of creating chances. So, yeah, I'll bring Jota out and Diaz can start for me and Mane's down the middle.
Okay, Charlotte, what do you think?
Yeah, I think the same as that, to be honest. I think Jota didn't really do much yesterday, and Diaz, obviously, when he came on, he was great. And that three of Diaz, Mane down the middle, and Salah, it's been working. So I think that'll be what Klopp goes for.
Okay, and Rich, yourself?
It's quite mad, isn't it? Because it doesn't seem that long ago we were talking about the form of Diogo Jota and how he was possibly the first name on the team sheet up front. But things move quickly in football, don't they? And I'd have to agree with Gorsty and Charlotte and say I think it's the same thing. I think Jota will miss out with Mane down the middle, Salah in his usual position, and the exciting Luis Diaz on the left-hand side, who again, I feel, especially with a start, could be a player that really causes Villarreal the most problems on Wednesday evening.
I mean, not my position to tinker with the team, but I'd start Jota and give Mane a rest just ahead of the trip to Newcastle. But we'll have to wait and see.
I said that yesterday, and that never happened. So
no, exactly. I say a lot of things on this podcast, Rich, that never happen. So that's just the way it is. Let's run through our match predictions. And Gorsty, you go first. Then Charlotte and Rich, you can finish us off. What's the score going to be?
Yeah, it's a bit like the Benfica game where you kind of want to tempt fate and say get the first leg done and dusted, and you can rest easy for the second leg. But the semi-finals of the Champions League, I think that's asking a real. Well, probably asking too much, isn't it? So I'd just be delighted with any kind of win. Let's say 2-0 Liverpool.
Charlotte?
I'm going to go 3-1 Liverpool.
Okay, and Rich?
I think Liverpool can keep a clean sheet. I feel like I'm tempting fate by offering a higher scoreline than 2. So I'm going to be humble. I'm going to say 2-0 Liverpool.
2-0 to the Reds. We'll have to wait and see how it does play out. Of course, plenty of build-up to come. Jurgen Klopp's press conference will come on Tuesday and the game itself on Wednesday. Stick across the Liverpool Echo and here on the Blood Red channel as well. As I say, plenty of build-up to come across our digital output. But from myself, Guy Clarke, Paul Gorst, Charlotte Coates and Rich Garnett, thanks for your time and your company. It's bye for now.